Welcome back to the channel. 410 Outdoors here. We're going to keep going on our 410 reloading videos. So, it's the middle of January, guys. It's cold out, and we're doing some shooting, but like this past weekend, it rained all day Saturday. So we didn't get to do any shooting Saturday, and then Sunday, everything was soaked, and it was just a mess. So we're not doing much shooting right now on the channel, as you can see, but as spring comes and it starts warming up, we're going to start doing some shooting videos and mixing in some other stuff. So that's coming. So right now, I do a lot of reloading in the wintertime, kind of stockpile for the spring. That way, come springtime, I've got plenty of ammo to go shoot. So that's why, all these videos are kind of looking the same. So, keep that in mind. So today we're going to talk about powder. So, with 410, you use different powder than you would for, say, 12 and 20 gauge and 28 gauge. You're actually using Magnum pistol powder is what it is. So 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum, 41 Magnum. You can load 45 Colt with it, but those are, 44 and 357 are the big ones. And among other stuff, there's obviously other things, but you're using a Magnum pistol powder. You're not using a typical shotgun powder. So keep that in mind. What you're going to use is a little bit different. So, however, there are several other things that go with powder that we want to talk about. There's certainly responsibility with this, and this is for entertainment purposes only. So make sure you read and do your research before you do this. But the first two things, and you can't have one of these without the other. The first two things you got to get right there is number one, in my opinion, is a reloading manual. Now, as you can see, this one's old. Reloading data doesn't go bad. So, if somebody will give you a 3-year-old book, take it. This particular one, these are free a lot of times, and a lot of times you can get on the internet and find stuff on powder manufacturers. So this only has a few 410 loads in it, but it has all kinds. There's 28 gauge, 20, all that stuff. Here's pistol, rifle data, and then all kinds of stuff. So that's a good book. But certainly there are other options. The other thing you absolutely have to have is a scale. Okay, you can get an electronic one like this. This is what I would call a cheap Hornady one. However, I have been using it for a very long time, and yeah, I get extremely accurate loads out of it. So it just takes 2 AA batteries, and it's nice because you can move it around. You don't have to worry about a plug. Here's the tray for it. You set it on there. It zeroes out, and you're ready to go. So I've had very good luck with this. I think I gave like 25 bucks for it. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago, but I have loaded thousands of rifle and pistol shells on it. So you don't have to go buy a $400 RCBS Chargemaster to get started. So, but those two are an absolute must: reloading manual and powder measure. Not if you don't have those, you don't even need to start with this. So, the only powder I don't have that's real common for 410s is Winchester 296. I've never used 296. But I shoot with some guys that use 296, and I know a lot of people use 296. Those guys have good luck with it. They break as many targets as I do on a skeet field, and I'm sure it's great stuff. I just personally have no experience with it, so I do not have any 296, but 296 would be your first option. Second is little gun. I've used this some. It's not what I use all the time, but it's pretty good stuff. You know, I've loaded some 2.5-inch shells with it for skeet. You know, I shoot a 1/2 ounce a shot at 1,250 feet a second. So that's my target velocity across the board for all of my loads. But that's from Hodgdon Little Guns. So that's a good choice. I've used it before. Alliant 2400. This is more probably pronounced as the powder that Elmer Keith used when he designed 44 Magnum and 357. But you can load 410 shells with it. I have used it. You know, I don't use a lot of it. You know, obviously I just have a 1-pound jug of it here. So it's not what I use all the time. Again, 1,250 feet per second, 1/2 ounce a shot. It'll do it all day long. So, you know, that's a good option. Another one is IMR 4227. I have used quite a bit of this, and I've used this more than these two, but honestly I used it more for pistol powder than I did 410. But there's what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that or not, and I'll show you this too. That's very similar. Those two are. And the little gun, it's a little bit shinier. So, but as you can tell, they all look the same. Obviously, make sure that whatever you're using is in a marked container, and you know what it is. So, next. A big one, and I use this one quite a bit. H110. This is a very good pistol powder, and I've shot a lot of 410 shells with it. Again, 1,250 feet a second, with a half ounce load. So you know we're talking target loads here. So, but I use that for. This is my go-to for 357 and 44 Magnum. So, but I've loaded lots of 410 shells with that. So that's good stuff as well. And there's what it looks like. So there's that. And then what I have used the most of, and what I personally like the best, is 410 powder. And that's not a joke. That's literally what it's called, Alliant 410 powder. To my knowledge, there is no other load data for this other than for a 410 shotgun. So, you know, you're kind of, this is a one trade powder. This other stuff, you can get load data for your Magnum pistol powder or Magnum pistol cartridges. But this stuff, to my knowledge, there is only 410 load data for it. So, but I have used a bunch of this. So this is my go-to and has been for years. It's what I like the best. It's more of a, it gives the appearance a little bit more of a flaked powder, or this is more of a ground up fine powder. But I really like the Alliant 410 powder. And the thing to remember is, you know, this is, when stuff gets hard to find, you can switch between these, you know, in your 410 loads. You know, obviously you have to change your bushing and all that kind of stuff. But you can, you know, if you can find 4227 and you're using 410 powder, you know, switch over. It's not that big a deal to, you know, to change your bushings and, you know, swap over and use a chronograph. That's the other thing. So for years I was loading shotgun shells, and I was following the book based on velocities. Well, I would take a 410 out and break 25 targets with it. And then I'd take my 20 gauge out and I'd break 20. And it was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why am I breaking more targets with less shot and a smaller gun? So I went and bought a chronograph. So for years I went without one. Well, I went to the range one day and took all of my loaders and I started shooting my reloads through it. Well, my 12 gauge shells were going 1,050 feet a second. My 20 gauge shells were going like 1,350. My 28 gauge shells were going like 1,300, and then my 410 shells were going like 1,250 feet a second. Well, that was where I wanted my loads, was 1,250 feet a second. That's pretty close to what you get on factory stuff. So while all these loads were safe, they weren't, the velocities were all over the place, and according to the book, they should have all been going about 1,200 feet a second. Well, that wasn't the case. So I bought a chronograph, and I should have bought one years ago. So the other big thing is buy a chronograph and get all your reloads shooting the same. If you're using 410 powder and you run out and switch to 4227, if these are going 1,200 feet a second, set your loader up so that 4227 is throwing them 1,200 feet per second, and you'll never notice a difference. Okay? And the other thing is, if you can get one of these cheaper than the other, use the cheap one, because they're all good powders. They all work. Everybody has their preference, but it's not that big a deal. So use, what's available and what's the cheapest, and you should be able to load 410 shells. So again, that's the powder